Okay,
Good morning. So staying with the Robs here in Stratford, PEI, and we were out for a walk yesterday, and we were in this old meadow, which used to be a horse paddock, and it was just really interesting. It's covered in yarrow and dandelions and oxeye daisies and a number of wildflowers and grasses that are kind of moving in here, as well as some of these oak trees that Rob's planted and some of the spruce along the border here. And it's just, if you look at the diversity in here, it's just doing really well. It's just years and years of horse manure that's built up. And then we went next door where there's a farmer that has a field that he's had under cultivation for a number of years, and you can notice already just stepping off, right? So this field is pretty much a monoculture. Well, it is a monoculture. It's probably, how many acres is this?
This is
4 acres?
about 3 or 4.
3 or 4 acres, and it's been plowed. You can see the PEI soil here. It's been plowed and turned over many years. And there's a difference here of that's about 8 inches right there between the horse paddock and the monoculture field. And the other day, we were just taking, soil samples to see what we could find here. And in this soil is pretty sparse. There's not much. There's a few things living in here. Sort of dug into an ant colony, and but you can see that it's a monoculture soil. Whereas over here, for one thing, it's hard to even get to the soil because there's so much stuff alive in here. There's so much stuff that's taken root. But just pulling up.
Look at the color of it too.
The handful of soil is much different here. We'll compare just these two here. You can see this is darker and kind of loamier. It's a more complex soil because it's had more of the manure and more of the processing over all the years, and it hasn't been plowed. This has probably had pesticides applied to it and herbicides applied to it to keep the monoculture growing. And we were talking about how this is kind of a metaphor for the way we work with organizations. Is that most organizations are kind of monoculture, and it takes an awful lot of resources to keep them consistent, to keep them all pointing the same direction, to keep them growing the same things over time. But you can see that over time that approach will deplete your resources, your base resources. In other words, the capacity of this field to grow anything is going to depend on the quality of the soil. And here the soil is amended to grow just this one specific crop, and has been for many years. Whereas over here, this is more like what a community looks like, where you have many different things working together. You've got a soil that's very complex in that it's supporting an understory of lots of different life, so there's lots of capacity in here. And this soil will generate a different meadow every year. So as the forest over here begins to come back into the meadow, the saplings that are going to start to come in, every summer this is going to be a different field, because this is going to grow exactly what's needed for here. And you don't have to do any work with a field like this. All you have to do is really just hold the space on it. You just really need to make sure that actually nobody turns it into a monoculture. And that way eventually this native forest will come back here with these hardwoods that are growing in the maples and the oaks that are growing back into here. And naturally it'll restore itself to its natural state without any work at all. And in the meantime, there's actually food growing in here. We found the other day some oxeye daisies and some wild strawberries that were growing in here too. So there's already food that can be produced here.
Even dandelions we regard as weeds, but actually a dandelion,
greens.
It makes a decent salad. I think this is probably a bit over the top, but certainly a month ago, when there wouldn't have been almost anything to eat, dandelions could have provided you with quite a lot of sustenance.
Yeah, this absolutely. I mean, these will come out as soon as the snow melts.
Yeah.
So just this really remarkable difference between these two fields, right side by each. One that's been plowed for years and is gradually losing its capacity to generate anything like a community, and the other one here, which has just been naturally tended to. It hasn't been completely let go. It's full of manure. There's been horse manure here for
100 years.
For 100 years.
Yeah.
So it's a much different kind of a field, and you can see already just lots of yarrow and Lots of these colonizing wildflowers that are coming in and already changing the soil to make it possible for these trees to come through. That's not going to happen over here. It's going to take decades for this field, even for the soil to come back in this field, even for it to come up to the level of this one. So.
Well, Chris, thank you very much. It's been a joy to have you here. I'm sorry that only now is the sun coming out.